Yeah, this is going to be one strong topic. It's called sensory overload, managing sensory overload in autism. And here are some tips and strategies. One thing I get asked quite a bit is, what is sensory overload? For those who are curious, sensory overload is when an individual is overwhelmed by too much sensory information, such as loud noises, bright lights, or strong smells. Like for example, this right here would be too much. That is a sensory overload. Which there's a way to dim the light, but this is just a lamp that I use to read my book when I'm doing the audiobook, kind of thing too. Like bright lights like that too, strong smells and loud noises. Especially when it comes to the topic of autism, where sensory overloads can be destructive, can be too dangerous to the point it's going to drive them literally out of their mind. It's quite overwhelming, and they just want to hide from the world before things get too destructive, I guess you can say too. So. How does this affect? How does this affect with individuals with autism? Well, they can be so sensitive, to the point where they start having major meltdowns. And I've mentioned quite a bit on what meltdowns are when it comes to autism. So feel free to check those out involving meltdowns, on what is a meltdown, what happens, and all that kind of stuff, and why these occur. And one of the things that occur when it comes to meltdowns happen to be sensory overload for all these different senses. When those things became overload and all that kind of stuff, things can be pretty incredibly overwhelming, kind of thing too. Like as a jet that flies by real close to you. It's loud, unexpected, and it can shake the ground quite a bit. One of the worst examples I've had happens to be at the drag races, with the funny cars and those dragsters and all that kind of stuff too. They're so loud that they literally shake the ground. It's worse than thunder, kind of thing too. And I went there once when I was very little, and then I went there again later on, years later, probably close to a decade later, and it probably wasn't as chaotic as I thought it would be too, because sometimes things kind of mature in these little areas too, with when it comes to sensory, and it can take a long time. It take years to develop for that kind of stuff too, so the things that kind of affected me when it comes to the sensory stuff. In case you're wondering, this is my little box care and all that kind of stuff too. I know it looks like a stick of gum, but don't chew this one. it's just a box care for my books and stuff. Look at this. I'm still using a fidget today. And that goes to the next point when it comes to sensory overload. It's like, what do you do? What do you do to kind of calm things down? Well, fidgets for one. Fidgets kind of help with the sensory overload too. It doesn't matter how mature you could get. Sometimes it's okay to use a fidget. Sometimes I even use my wallet and spin my wallet like this, with my thumb and middle finger on the thing like this, and then spin it. That's what I like to do. I kind of like to spin things like that. I think there's some toys that let you do that kind of stuff, but for me, I kind of just use for everyday household items for that kind of stuff too, for fidgets. So that's why I kind of do when it comes to these sensory overloads. That's a way of me remaining calm and having some things to do when things kind of happen. When these kind of things happen, overloads, I kind of just feel like I just want frozen. I guess that kind of stuff. That's my little defense thing is to be frozen for these kind of situations and all that kind of stuff too, or even not just frozen, but also there were times where I just say bolt out of the situation and just start running. That's what I would do, is just run. I just run away from the situation that goes on too, and just keep on running too until you're at a place where it's a very calm, quiet environment, that kind of thing too. Happens to be the track meet that I like to go as well. It's mostly quiet, and you get the fresh air, and and yeah, it's to me that's my personal favorite place to be, next to the bathtub. That's one of the things I would that happens to be that's how I was able to manage when it comes to sensory overload as well. And then later on towards and then there happens a point for me personally. You can try this if you want to, but I'm not saying you have to. But the one thing that I've always wanted to do happens to be challenging myself to these sensory overloads. For example, I go from jazz music to rock music, or I go from the library to the arcades. If you've been to an arcade, those places can be quite noisy, and for me, after going to the drag races for the first time, my dad wanted me to challenge on these areas where places that aren't as noisy as the drag races, because when you start comparing the drag races to other things, they start to become not as noisy, kind of stuff too. And I've already mentioned a lot of stories where it's like people knew that I had autism, and they start questioning my dad's authority for these kind of things too. It's like, why did you take your son to a drag race? Isn't he sensitive to sound and all that kind of stuff? And it's like they start questioning. It's like, why did dad do this? And all kind of thing. Well, this was actually a very important thing of how to deal with sensory of other places. So start with the drag races, which is the most chaotic and noisy thing imaginable, and then don't go to the drag races until much later, and start going to other places that are not as noisy. Like, for example, the jet skis. Surprisingly, they're not as noisy as drag races. Or to the arcades. Turns out they're not as noisy as drag races. The bowling alley, not as noisy as the drag races. So you start seeing like these different levels of noisy and sensory overloads, and then start to and then that's when I start to choose to make the choice of dealing with these sensory overloads. It's like, what else can I deal with? And then there are some points where it's like, okay, maybe this is a bit too much, so I'm not going to do this until for much later. So I chose to deal with to go with the much more I chose to try different things in that sort of way too. And believe me, I was ready for if I can't deal with it anymore, it's like I was ready to take the risk. And a lot of moments they became unsuccessful, and then there were moments that became very successful. So that's what I would kind of do for that kind of stuff too, with the importance of the self advocacy. It's like the encouragement of individuals with autism to communicate their needs and preferences to those around them. It's like self discovery and self help for these kind of things too. And it's okay to do these things. You don't have to do them alone and that kind of thing too. You can still have some help in these little areas. And taking it solo, you can't take it solo. I would, personally, I recommend doing it solo when you're a legal adult and that kind of stuff too. That's when I feel like that's a much more not just safe, but also kind of just a way to challenge yourself even further when you're adult, and going out and start driving or taking the bus and all that kind of stuff, or taxi. So yeah, that's what it works in that sort of way. So so the strategies for these kind of things too is like with the fidgets, and also with the challenges and all that kind of thing too, and just do some research, just to figure out what goes on for these kind of things too. I wonder if there was a way for it to have like the different levels of different noises too. It's like that helps with people that have sensory overloads to say, it's like level 1 being more quiet, and level 5 or 10 or something like that being the most chaotic and most noisy. I wonder if they actually have something like that too. That'd be kind of sweet too. So it's kind of that stuff would be pretty nice. So yeah, sensory overload. It's a very strong subject, and everyone can deal with these sensory overloads in a much different kind of ways too, and I don't think that there is no right or wrong way of doing it, and that's why today I encourage the audience to start sharing their own experience on how they deal with sensory overload. Maybe maybe some people deal with it by dealing with art, or drawings and that kind of stuff too. And that's why whenever I do my personal videos, I like to make some videos to be like these chaotic and like these strange things that happen too, and it's like there might be some sensory lights or noises that can be a little bit too much for the viewers and all that kind of stuff. And the reason why for me to do these things on my personal channel and all that kind of stuff too, it's like simply called Tyler McNamer. And the reason why I would do these kind of things, it's because I want to personally challenge myself on what I can handle for these kind of things too, and simply just a new way of showing the audience on what I see in the world and all that kind of stuff too, and how I see things and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the main reason why I do it. So I do it in the whole sensory overload sort of nature, like the visuals appear to be broken or something like that too. That's how I was able to see things. And when sensory overload comes in, and I start having these these moments of something's not right and something's going on, and I start seeing the world as being extremely broken, I guess you can say too. Like there's something is not right, and it takes a long while for things to be repaired in these sort of ways too. That's anyway. Bottom line is that today I encourage the audience to write down or text or type what their strategies are when it comes to these sensory overloads and all that kind of stuff too. I know that everyone has much different strategies, so that's why we want to share and talk about it, and see what works in autism works. There's definitely no right or wrong way of thinking, and there's definitely no right or wrong way of dealing with these things too. It's like I read, and it's pretty nice to talk about and all that kind of thing too. Encouragements of comments, questions, and statements and answers in the comment section, so we can all talk about it. We can definitely all share these these different moments. So yeah, feel free to do so, and just remember, it's understandable when it gets really tough when it comes to these situations of very large sensory overload. So what I will encourage you to do is to hang in there. It's going to be okay. Just let it all out. It's okay. Don't hold these moments to yourself. And there are appropriate ways of laying it all out, like in private, like for example in your room, or in the bathtub, in the shower, or even in the fields or in the track field, if you feel like you need to, like go outside if there's into the woods or something like that too. There's always going to be ways to let it all out, and that's another thing too. Where would you go if you feel like you want to let it all out and all that kind of stuff too? Because you can't hold in too much for that long. Eventually, eventually the bomb is about to explode. It doesn't matter how long. Doesn't matter how long the fuse is. Eventually, that fuse would get shorter and shorter, and then the bomb would blow up, kaboom, and there's got to be a way to let it all out in a healthy sort of way. So I encourage you to do that. So at the end of this video, I challenge you to find your safe place. Find the safe place of I guess I could call it your testing facility. For when the bombs go off and all kind of stuff too. So find your facility. Find your place where you can blow up and let off some steam, and so that no one gets hurt, and you feel a lot better afterwards. And so with these sensory overloads, and then afterwards we can work on those sensory overloads together. This is not a solo journey. Let's work on it together.